Well, it's been a while since I've drawn anything. Just as I sat down and took a breath, I got a call from Colt. Can you pick me up from the hospital? As soon as I answered the phone, that's what Colt said. He was breathing heavily and hard to understand, but it seemed like he had collapsed during a company trip and was rushed to the hospital. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm much better now. How long do you think it'll take you to get here? The bill's going to be steep without my insurance card. After telling Colt it would take me about an hour, I started getting ready. But when I got my hands on Colt's insurance card, something clicked. It was the missing piece that connected all the dots. Be careful on your way here. Sure, I'll bring the divorce papers. Huh? His dumbfounded response was my cue to hang up the phone. Colt's probably bewildered and can't grasp the situation right now. All right, the showdown is set for the hospital. My name is Eleanor, a 38-year-old housewife. Drawing is my hobby, and I used to be a web designer. After marrying Colt, I started infertility treatments, so I'm currently not working. Colt and I met at what you might call a matchmaking party. We both felt this is the one the moment we met, and smoothly progressed to meeting each other's parents 2 months later. Being of the right age to marry, both our parents and in-laws were delighted and supportive. Even after 5 years of marriage, we still have monthly dinner parties with our parents, maintaining a great relationship. Yet we don't have any children. Turns out, after getting married, it was discovered the issue was with Colt. Fortunately, both of us have siblings, so there wasn't any pressure to have grandchildren. But Colt loves children and really wanted one. Colt's company is quite large, and he often works overtime, but he earns more than twice what I used to make. Perhaps that's why he suggested infertility treatments. I also wanted children, so I agreed. Enticed by the appealing offer to focus on the treatment and take it easy otherwise. However, even after 3 years of infertility treatments, we still hadn't had any children. I was fine without children, happy just being with Colt, but he couldn't let it go. Should we try in vitro fertilization? Sure, I guess. I'm sorry for putting this all on you, Eleanor, but I really want a child. Colt apologized, but I didn't feel bad at all. The fact that Colt wanted a child with me simply made me happy. And above all, he was cooperative with the treatment. So I resolved to keep trying, as long as he wanted to continue. In vitro fertilization was costly. And though Colt earned well, it wasn't without its financial burdens. Because of that, I considered starting a part-time job, and brought it up with Colt, but he was against it. Apparently, at Colt's company, it's customary for wives to be homemakers, and he felt it would be improper for me to work in that environment. He's a man with his pride, I guess, so I prioritized his feelings, and gave up the idea of working for the time being. However, that doesn't mean we were financially comfortable. Colt understood that too. After giving it some thought, he decided to start a side job, despite already having lots of overtime. When I asked if he was sure he could handle it, he insisted. Eleanor, please, just focus on the infertility treatment. He didn't tell me much about this side job, but since then, Colt's been coming home later and later. Sometimes he had business trips and stayed overnight at unknown locations due to confidentiality obligations. Then one day, I got a call from my best friend Florence. It's been a while. How are you? Hey, I'm not working right now, just taking it easy. Florence chuckled at my reply, but then fell silent. She hesitantly started asking about Colt. Hey, Eleanor, how are things with Colt? I think we're doing well. That's good. I hope so. I tilted my head at Florence's hesitant response, but continued sharing our recent events. The conversation was enjoyable, until we touched on the topic of Colt's side job, and Florence's tone turned somber. Is Colt around today? He's on assignment. That includes an overnight stay. I don't know where, though. I see, but surely not. What do you mean? Nothing, it's nothing, don't worry. After brushing off the subject, Florence quickly changed the topic. Although I felt a bit uneasy, I soon forgot about it as the conversation moved on. After hanging up, some unpleasant thoughts crossed my mind. But Colt had been fully supportive of our infertility treatments, and always surprised me with gifts when we returned from trips. His care and affection were evident, so I chose to trust Colt and devote myself to the treatment. During this time, Colt had to go on a company trip. It was an event where families could usually join, but this year, due to poor company performance, it was employees only. I really wanted you to come along, but I'm sorry. It's fine, don't worry about it. Colt seemed relieved by my response and cheerfully started preparing for the trip. Let's plan a getaway for ourselves on the next day off, a change of scenery. That sounds wonderful. I'll start looking for some place to go. I was thrilled about Colt's invitation. Maybe Hawaii this time, or Anchorage would be nice too. Oh, but considering Colt's fatigue, a nearby hot spring might be a relaxing option. As I was pondering this, something fell from Colt's bag. He picked it up quickly, so I couldn't see what it was, but he seemed a bit flustered. Actually, Eleanor, there's something I need to ask you to do while I'm away. He said this watching my reaction. He wanted me to pick up some documents from the city office and then buy some necessities for his work, he said. You're the only one I can rely on, Eleanor. And I gladly accepted without hesitation. However, the shopping list was extensive, requiring visits to several stores, making it an all-day affair. So it looked like I'd only have time for a quick tea break on my own. I was a bit disappointed, but if it meant being helpful to Colt, I didn't mind. On the day, Colt, in an unusually cheerful mood, patted my head and said, I'll be back, while wearing a brightly colored shirt and an unfamiliar necklace. Where did you get that necklace? Oh, this? It's from my side job. Does it suit me? Uh-huh. He used to dislike jewelry. I wondered if there had been a change of heart. He even seemed to be wearing a different perfume, almost like a different person. But commenting on his fashion choices might ruin his employee trip, so I refrained from asking more. Colt left for his trip with a smile. I finished my chores and prepared to go out. In the morning, I went to the city office, collected the documents, and then visited each store, buying the specific items he requested. They were just ordinary stationery items, but because he had specific brands, I had to visit different stores. By the time I got everything, the day had almost ended. I decided to treat myself to Korean cuisine, something we usually don't eat because Colt doesn't like spicy food, but I've always enjoyed spicy dishes. After savoring a spicy meal for the first time in a while, I messaged Colt that I had bought everything, but he didn't read the message. Maybe he was caught up in the fun of his company party. With that thought, I headed home with my many bags. Well, shall I draw something? It's been a while, I thought as I sat down and took a breath. That's when I got a call from Colt. Can you pick me up from the hospital? As soon as I answered, that's what Colt said. He was breathing heavily and hard to understand, but it seemed like he had collapsed during the company trip and was rushed to the hospital. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm much better now. How long will it take you to get here? The bill's going to be steep without my insurance card. After telling Colt it would take about an hour, I started getting ready. But when I got Colt's insurance card, I noticed something. That discovery was the key that connected all the previous mysteries. Be careful coming over. Sure, I'll bring the divorce papers. Huh? I ended the call at Colt's dumbfounded response. He must be confused and unable to grasp the situation by now. All right, the showdown is set at the hospital. While heading to the next county, I called Florence. Florence lived about 20 minutes by car from the hospital where my husband was. After I explained the situation, she agreed to come without hesitation, so I decided to pick her up first. As soon as Florence got in the car, she apologized with a serious look. Actually, when I called you last time, I saw someone who looked like Colt walking with another woman. He seemed different from when I last met him, so I wasn't sure. Saying this, Florence showed me a photo on her mobile phone. It captured Colt, dressed in flashy clothes I'd never seen before, walking arm in arm with a woman who had a gentle look. Looking at the photo, I thought to myself, I knew it. Furthermore, Florence showed me another photo. Incredibly, this woman was Florence's neighbor. They knew each other's last names at best, having never spoken directly. So whenever this woman went out, Florence discreetly followed her, capturing her secret meetings with Colt in photos. The wife of that man, despite having a child and a husband who works long hours, having an affair. It's true, you can't judge a book by its cover. I nodded repeatedly to Florence's words. The photos showed them repeatedly entering and exiting hotels. This must have been tough for you, especially with your busy work schedule. It's okay. I can work anywhere as long as I have my computer. Don't worry about it. Besides, I couldn't stand the thought of my best friend Eleanor being betrayed. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you right away. I shook my head at Florence's apology. Even if she had told me then, I probably wouldn't have believed it. More than that, I was immensely grateful that she had gathered this much evidence. When I expressed my gratitude, Florence, with tears in her eyes, said, I'll do anything to help. Arriving at the hospital and heading to the treatment room, Colt was lying on the bed, connected to an IV drip. I didn't speak to Colt, but went straight to the nurse's station to explain the situation. The nurse was initially surprised, but quickly called the attending doctor. Before the doctor arrived, the nurse hesitantly explained the current situation. Actually, the woman accompanying your husband is also receiving treatment here. Yes, I had my suspicions. The nurse gave a wry smile at my response. Then the doctor arrived, and I decided to hear the details in a separate room. Colt and the woman had eaten at a seafood restaurant, and then were brought to the hospital for food poisoning. They were receiving treatment, such as IV drips, but the earliest they could be discharged was the day after tomorrow. Colt, unaware of this, had asked me to pick him up. After thanking the doctor and finishing the paperwork, I noticed a man doing the same nearby. At the same moment Florence signaled to me, the man looked our way. Excuse me, are you with that gentleman over there? Yes, I am. I'm Colt's wife. Oh, I see. I'm Warren, Dana's husband. It seems we both had quite the misfortune. I was taken aback by what the man Warren continued to say. Apparently, Dana had told Warren that when they got food poisoning, she just happened to be in the same restaurant with someone. When I revealed the truth, Warren was initially skeptical. But after seeing the photos, he was speechless and visibly shocked. Florence, Warren, and I discussed our plan, and then headed together to the hospital room. We could hear laughter from the room, but it suddenly stopped as we approached. We looked at each other and decided that I should enter the room first. Colt, are you okay?
Ah, Eleanor, sorry for the late hour.
Don't worry about it. Quite the eventful company trip, huh?
Yeah, really.
Colt, comforted by my gentle tone, seemed to mistake the words I had said on the phone for a misunderstanding. I kept smiling and continued talking to Colt. Should I contact someone for you? Maybe a colleague?
No need for that. I've already taken care of it.
I almost laughed at Colt's panicked reaction, but I pretended to be oblivious and turned to Dana. And who might you be?
Well, we just happened to get food poisoning at the same place, right?
As Colt looked for agreement, Dana timidly answered, Yes, that's right. From my perspective, knowing the truth, their behavior seemed painfully forced, but I maintained my smile. Oh, I see. Actually, Florence came with me because this hospital is close to her house.
Florence is here?
At my cue, Florence and Warren entered the room. Dana's face contorted upon seeing Florence. I didn't miss Dana's moment of panic and quickly pointed it out. Actually, Dana, you're neighbors with Florence, aren't you? Yes, she's someone I occasionally greet. Wait, how do you know my name? Dana was trying to agree with me when she realized I knew her name. Her face turned pale as she braced for my next move. That's when Florence spoke up. Hello there. I learned your name just a moment ago from your husband, but I recognize your face quite well. After all, you're always arm in arm with my best friend's husband. I've taken plenty of photos of you too. What are you talking about? That's so rude. Dana was visibly panicking, but still trying to deny her relationship with Colt in front of Warren.
So you were cheating on me while I was at work?
No, it's not like that. You're misunderstanding. Dana, still connected to an IV drip, tried to rise from her bed, frantically protesting. Warren directed a cold gaze at Dana.
Is that so? Then are these photos of you entering the hotel just faked?
How? Why? When Warren presented the photos right in front of Dana, she was at a loss for words. Understandably, as the photos showed Colt and Dana kissing in front of a hotel. How could you do this? I'm just as shocked. I was only collecting evidence because my best friend's husband was cheating. Florence scoffed at Dana, who was glaring at her, trying to shift the blame. Dana's face turned red with anger, but then she took a deep breath, turned to Warren, and started crying. I'm sorry, but it was just once. Today we just happened to bump into each other at the same restaurant.
Oh, is that so?
That's right. So you know I regret it. I really do love you. Dana believed Warren had only seen that one photo, so she clung to Warren, speaking in a pleading tone. However, Warren pushed Dana away and turned to Colt.
Hey, what about you? Well, it's true. I'm sorry. It was just one time with Miss Dana. But only once. Really? Yes, I'm not lying.
Hearing Colt's words, Warren sighed deeply. Then he gave me a look. I took out all the photos I had received from Florence beforehand and scattered them between the two beds. What?
Eleanor, what are you doing?
Colt and Dana seemed initially confused, but then paled as they looked at the photos that had fallen into their hands. Just once, huh? Strange, this seems to be quite a lot of evidence.
When did you realize?
Colt said that much before hastily covering his mouth. But by then, he had practically admitted to the affair. Smiling, I asked, Since when do you think? Colt, seemingly resigned, began to speak.
It was just a fling. We started infertility treatments, and when we still couldn't have a child, I knew it was my fault, but I felt so ashamed.
Really?
But believe me, the only one I love is you.
Listening to Colt say nearly the same things as Dana, I was utterly dismayed. Well, that's enough. Here, the divorce papers. Sign them.
No, I don't want a divorce.
A guilty party doesn't have the right to refuse a divorce.
Please forgive me. I'll change and dedicate myself to you.
Colt pleaded, clinging to me. It's strange how someone I once wanted to spend my entire life with could now seem like a complete stranger. When Colt realized I wouldn't change my mind, he signed the divorce papers in disappointment. But then his expression brightened, and he said something astonishing.
Even if we divorce, we can start over as lovers, right? We just didn't have enough time to understand each other, right? Let's start over.
His utterly selfish proposal made me burst out laughing. Thinking that a fresh start was possible in such a situation was overly optimistic. When I laughed, Colt mistook it for an affirmation and reached out to me with a bigger smile. I brushed his hand away and said, That's not going to happen. As for the compensation in the divorce, we'll discuss that later with your parents. They'll make sure it's calculated properly.
What? Bringing Dad and Mom into this is unfair.
I couldn't comprehend how he found this unfair. Not just me, but Florence and Warren also couldn't help but laugh. We're getting divorced, right? It's only natural to discuss the reasons thoroughly.
This is a problem between you and me, right?
Divorce is a matter for both families. I've already shared everything with them before coming here.
That's...
Colt went silent, turning pale. No wonder, since my in-laws are both lawyers, with my mother-in-law being a well-known divorce attorney, and they were furious after hearing about this situation. Their anger, of course, was directed at Colt.
Excuse me, could I also hire your lawyers?
What are you saying? No way, I won't allow a divorce. Dana reacted to Warren's words. She looked at Warren with disbelief, then glared at me. If this really leads to a divorce, I won't forgive you. I'll demand compensation. Are you not aware? Compensation is something I can demand from you, not the other way around. I'm getting divorced because of you. Dana shouted at me in a near frenzy. She clearly didn't want a divorce, but even if she tried to sue me, it would lead nowhere. As I stayed silent, Dana started hurling all kinds of insults at me, but Warren's words put an end to it.
It's rich coming from you. You dressed up in my clothes for dates with this guy.
The room fell silent. The new clothes I thought Colt had bought were actually Warren's. Even Colt seemed shocked, staring wide-eyed at Dana. Dana tried to say something in her defense, but before she could, Florence dropped another bombshell. Oh, that reminds me. I saw someone I thought was Warren, but it turned out to be someone else. He was wearing the same shirt as Warren today. What? Everyone, including me, Warren, and Colt, was taken aback. It seemed Dana had been involved with multiple men. Florence showed Warren a photo. He turned pale as he accepted it.
That guy? He's my cousin.
What? Dana's face turned red with embarrassment as she hung her head down. Florence and I exchanged surprised glances, but the most shocked of all was Colt.
Hey, Dana, what's this about? You said you loved only me.
Colt yelled, but Dana wouldn't lift her face. Clearly, the cousin was the main focus for Dana, and Colt was just a fling. I handed the spare divorce papers I had brought to Warren.
Anyway, please sign this divorce petition. I'll be contacting his place next.
Wait, if you contact him, his wife will... Turns out, he was also married. I was so exasperated, I was beyond words. Warren seemed to have forced Dana to sign the divorce papers, and then contacted both their parents and his cousin. Dana, in a frenzied state, tried desperately to stop it, but being connected to an IV drip, she couldn't prevent it. Holt, utterly shocked that Dana had someone else, was in complete dismay. Florence and I exchanged glances. Then we made our preparations to leave, said goodbye to Warren, and left the hospital room. 2 days later, Colt and Dana were discharged. Each was taken home by their respective parents. After we left, Warren also left the hospital room, and the atmosphere was reportedly the worst it could be. I learned this when I visited the hospital later to apologize for the disturbance. Colt was sternly reprimanded by his parents and agreed to pay me a significant sum in compensation, more than the standard amount. His parents said I could have all the joint savings, and I gratefully accepted. The compensation was paid by his parents on his behalf, and they intended to recover the full amount from Colt. Knowing them to be people who despise dishonesty, I was confident they would ensure full repayment. When I last saw them, both my mother-in-law and father-in-law tearfully apologized. The one good thing about marrying Colt was getting to know these wonderful in-laws. It also turned out the side job was just a lie to cover up his affair. I was speechless when I learned that Colt and Dana had met through a matchmaking service for married individuals seeking a thrill. Hearing this, Florence and I just laughed, unable to comprehend their actions. The Dana Warren household divorced, with Warren taking custody of their child. Dana was disowned by her family, and to pay the compensations to me and Warren, took up several day jobs, working tirelessly. As for Warren's cousin, they chose to reconstruct their marriage on the condition that the cousin would be registered under the wife's family name, and Warren decided to disown his cousin in exchange for not demanding compensation. As for me, I'm now living in a shared house with Florence. I've been hired at her design company, so income isn't an issue. I'm enjoying working again after a long time. Recently, I've been secretly rooting for Warren and Florence, who seem to be hitting it off. I believe things will work out since the child is also getting along well with Florence. I have no intentions of remarrying, so I plan to live my life to the fullest, just for myself.